Welcome back. You might notice I'm wearing a COVID mask. That's because anything that I shoot in this building, I'm going to have to do that with. So today I'm going to show you how to remove and install a lockout hub in this video. And then after that, I'm going to get inside of here and actually repack the wheel bearings, do the seal, all of that stuff. So for this video, what we're going to do is just simply remove, I'll show you how it works, and then reinstall this lockout hub. Now the last vehicle that I can think of that used this style of lockout hub was about a 97 F250, F350. They really started to disappear in the 90s. Chevy got rid of them in the 80s, but they've been gone for a while. So as a result, a lot of your guys that knew how these worked have retired. So where we're going to start on this is you'll take these 6 bolts around the hub out. And I've already removed 5 of them and loosened this one. But these are generally an Allen type screw. Some of your Fords only used like 3 screws. Most of them use 6 though. So one of the differences you'll find is the type of screw that holds this in. This one has a squared off edge to them. A lot of them will actually have a tapered shank where it seats into the hub. Which one's better? I don't think there's really that big of a difference. But this one has the flat flange. Now, when you're doing these on a vehicle that has not had them removed in a while, these will tend to rust inside the hub, or corrode, I guess, because it's aluminum. But you will oftentimes have to end up drilling the head of this bolt off. Now, when you do that, you want to try to make it so it just takes the head off, and you can then usually work the lockout off over top of that. This one should come out pretty easy. I take these off relatively frequently, and we do that for kind of a maintenance reason. If you off-road a vehicle, this is something you should be checking on a pretty regular basis. So if they come off easy, you can just grab it and work it out of there, which that one's actually a little more stuck than I expected. So this one's a little bit more stuck than I expected. What I'll end up doing is I'll just grab a soft hammer. And this one really shouldn't be bad. It's been out not very long ago. I'm just going to give it kind of a little tap. It's still not coming. Spin it around. Tap the other side. Break the hammer. It's starting to work its way out. So what there is inside here is an O-ring seal that seals the edge of this hub. And actually this one, I'll pop it off of there so you can see it, maybe. Okay, so there's a little O-ring seal inside of this hub that seals it against the, I guess that would be wrong terminology. There's an O-ring seal on this lockout that seals it against the metal hub. So that's what tends to stick. This one had some grease on it to keep it from corroding inside of here. And now that we've got that out of the way, we can see the inner portion. This is the outer part of the lockout hub. The inner portion is still in here. Now, there are 2 snap rings if this thing is properly installed. One of them on the axle shaft and one of them in the hub itself. Now, this one on the axle shaft, a lot of the time it will have tabs on it for a snap ring plier. This one is not that style, and I can't spin this one very easily. But as I spin this, you can see the hub moves independently. The center part in here is the axle shaft, and you'll see that more clearly once it's out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pick in this particular one because it does not have the snap rings. The snap ring ones are real easy. Use the snap ring pliers, pop them out, and they pop right out in nice and easy. Now for this one, I'm going to find the end, which is right there. I'm just going to grab it with this angled pick, kind of get in behind it, grab my 90-degree pick, and I'm just going to kind of work this thing off, and there it is. So this is our retaining ring that's in the axle shaft. Want to be kind of careful with these. You don't want to spread them out and wreck them. So now the axle shaft is loose. This ring right here, this is what a lot of people struggle with, and I'm hopefully going to make it pretty easy. You do the same thing. You find the end of the ring, which in this case, the ring is missing right there. I usually start at a bolt hole that's close to it. Get my combination pick underneath there. Maybe. I had it, and then I lost it. And you can actually slide where your end is at a little bit, as long as it's not rusted up too bad. Get back in behind it with our combination pick, and this one is actually just sliding out all the way around. Okay, that is our outer retaining ring. The way I've always pulled these is I just take one of our bolts that holds the lockout outer shell on, thread it in, and if everything's lubricated nice and good, this comes right out like that. Now I also told you I was going to show you how these work, so I'll do that right now. Okay, so the way our lockout works is we twist this from free to lock. This is like a quarter turn. So these things are usually anywhere from, these usually take anywhere from a quarter turn like this to some of them are almost a full turn around to go from free to lock. And what happens when you do that, when you make that turn, is this ring is going to pop out. So now that is the lock position. This is the free. Lock, free. And if you look down inside of this one, we have splines in this center section, and we have keys or big splines on this outer section. So we got inner splines, outer splines. This is just one style. There are actually some slight differences that you'll see from different manufacturers, but this is what we've got in our Super Winch brand of hub. Now if we look at the inner portion, we've got a spot where those splines sit into, and then down here on this ring in the center, there are spots where the other spline locks into. So if I put this together, which see we've got a dowel or an alignment or a roll pin right there, that's got an index with one of these two spots when you're putting it back together. So if we set this together, right now this outer ring splines to the wheel hub where the lug nuts are, where the wheel actually mounts, and then the inner part splines to this axle shaft, which this truck has a rather tight limited slip in the front end, so I'm not going to be able to spin that, but that's hooked up to your drive shaft. When we have the lockout hub, so right now it's in the free position, when we have it in the free position, these are not connected together. So these two spin totally independent, they're not hooked together. When we take this and spin it to the lock position, now it's in lock. So right now it's trying to push up. It is pushing this away. So I'm going to hold it together, and as we start to rotate, this will spin a little bit, but then it's going to lock in. So once, and you just heard that click, that was the insides here locking together. Now this spline is locked to this spline, and this shaft will spin at the same speed as the hub. So when we go to put this back together, actually when we turn it to free again, it loosens back up. Now if you've got this thing under load, these splines will actually bind up, and you may have to rock the car or truck backwards or forward a little bit to get it to release. When we go to put this back together, this one's got some pretty good grease on it, and part of the issue there was this hub had some existing rust. So we cleaned it up and then greased it real good to hopefully keep the rust at bay. When I go to put this back together, it usually slides onto the axle shaft first. So we then spin it and get it to where it lines up with the hub. That part just drops in. A lot of the time I will still have one of the screws left on there because I just haven't taken it off yet. After we drop that in, this outer retaining ring simply just pushes into place. Okay? Sometimes you may need to take a pick and pop it the rest of the way in. But that's now in there. What that's going to do is that's going to hold this from pulling back out. So this part is now locked in. After that, we take this outer ring, and it just, in this case, these are tapered, so it just slides on and locks in. Now, this axle shaft can't press back into the axle. Sometimes when you're doing that, this axle shaft will run away from you and try to dip back into the axle. If it's doing that, you simply come around the back side to where the axle shaft, which is this piece right here, is trying to slide away, and you would take that and actually, I'll try to get from the back side. So you would take this axle shaft here and push it out towards the wheel end. You can do that by hand or with the pry bar, whatever way is easier. Now that we've got this area installed, what we'll do is we'll take our lockout, and again, this one has some grease left on it already. You may want to put a little bit of grease on the seal to keep it from rusting or corroding, whatever you want to call it. This one has enough that I'm going to call it good. We line up our roll pin with one of the notches here. There may be a different alignment setup that you have to worry about on the hubs that you're working on. But after that, we just line that up. Now, because this ring is going to need to seat in, it's not going to drive all the way home on its own real easy. I'm only going to put 3 of these bolts in because I'm going to take this right back apart. But you'll start your bolts, make sure that everything's lined up. Grab our Allen key again. If you're going to pull these back in with the bolts, make sure that you do it in a nice even manner so this thing sets down nice and easy and doesn't rip the O-ring. And once you get these all tightened down, you'll just make sure that they are nice and evenly seated. And this will bottom out against the hub, and at that point you now have so we're in free, so it's not going to spin. Now this axle is not going to turn over very easy, so when I lock it, you heard it clunk, and now I have to spin the whole axle and drive shaft, so it's pretty hard to spin. Turn it back to free, and you heard it clunk again, so that's open. And that's all there really is to those lockout hubs. So thanks for watching. I'll have the bearing repack up before too long. I'm not sure if I'll do this one or another one. Minimum on an off-roading rig like this is you want to pop these hubs out and make sure you didn't get water in the bearings. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you later.